Good evening and welcome to the Monday Agenda. The Monday Agenda today is delighted and very honored to host Chsrles Meshack, who is the Executive Director of the Tanzania Forest Conservation Group, who has just received an award called the French Republic's Human Rights Prize 2020 on the issues of environment. And when you speak of environment in today's era, you can't escape running away from what we call the biodiversity. So, Mr. Chsrles, please welcome to the program, and it's truly an honor to have you on the program. Please, before we talk about the award, tell us, when we speak about biodiversity, what is it that really is in detail?
Yes, so biodiversity is the relationship between the human beings, the way they interact with the natural resource, but also the way the animals or the mammals, the way they interact with human beings on their environment. That is one part. But the second part is the way the environment depends on the habitat, on the habitat that they live, so that they can reproduce and they can continue to be there. So that kind of relationship, that is what we call biodiversity. So in summary, it is the relationship between human beings, the way they interact with nature, and the way the living things which are on that kind of habitat, the way they interact with each other, and they depend on that kind of habitat.
Okay, so the interdependence between living things and non-living things,
Yes.
Is that the right way to say it?
Yes, that is the right way to say that is biodiversity.
And why is biodiversity of great importance in today's arena?
So the biodiversity is very important because the biodiversity is the one which is keeping some of the animals or some of the species which are in kind of threat. So you find that the biodiversity is very important because that kind of diversity between the animals and also the different plants which we have, they are very rich in this kind of world, and especially even in Tanzania. So you find that we still need them because, for example, some of the plants which we have not even discovered their names, they are potential for cure for different diseases.
Okay.
And that is quite potential. But second, they are very important in terms of providing the quality of life in terms of the environment itself. So the way they interact, they provide the relief, or they provide that kind of health ecosystem services to the communities or to the people themselves.
Okay.
So that is why we needed to make sure that we protect the biodiversity we have in this global, but especially even in our country.
Excellent, Mr. Meshack. So this Tanzania Forest Conservation Group, as the Executive Director, what is your mandate? What do you do?
Yes, so in brief, the Tanzania Forest Conservation Group is a national NGO which was established in 1985.
85.
So it has been there for almost more than 30 years.
Yes.
And our vision is to protect and promote forests of high biodiversity globally, but they are found in Tanzania.
Okay.
That is our vision. And our mission is to make sure that we reduce poverty, at the same time conserve and restore the degraded forests, to protect them so that they could continue to provide the ecosystem services for the present and the future generation. That is why we make sure that we protect these forests. And we do that through different ways. So we have kind of 5 programs that we do. The first one is participatory forest management. And the second one is about research. We also do research. We want to know in this nature what kind of biodiversity are there, how do they interact with the people, and how people depend on them. Second, we also do, we improve community livelihoods. By improving community livelihood, we make sure that we involve the communities so that they understand why they should protect that nature or that biodiversity, but at the same time, how can they reduce their poverty by either using income generating activities that are related to promote nature, like beekeeping. That is one of the biodiversity. So they could do beekeeping. At the same time, they could get livelihood by beekeeping, but also protecting the habitat of of the bees. And the other program we do, we also do environmental education.
Okay.
So we make sure that the kids or the children who are adjacent to these resources in the primary schools and in secondary schools, they also understand it right from when they are children.
And the focus is mainly on children.
Yes, so that program is on children.
Although they're as vulnerable as the forests themselves, because they're not the ones who go to chop the trees, but their parents.
Yes, but they will be affected equally if they don't understand the consequences of the actions of their parents.
Okay. Now, the twist of the program, the way I'm looking at it, if the parents are sensitized, of course, we'll come to look onto other alternative sources, because, we still depend heavily on the forest as a source of energy. So if we nurture, which is very good, to nature children as they start from young ages. But when they grow, they see their parents chopping trees and burning firewood, etc. Trying to see which way is out. But please proceed.
So the other program is advocacy. So we need to advocate good policies based on what we learn from the ground. So we advocate to make sure that we protect these forests of biodiversity. And we even go further to make sure that we demarcate the areas which are important for biodiversity. So TFCG focuses mainly on the two areas in the country. We focus on the Eastern Aka Mountains and also the coastal forests. Okay. So these are globally known. Why are they known? They have different, I would say, three main ecosystem services. One is biodiversity itself. Okay. So this habitat of forests, they have high concentration of endemic species. By endemic species, I mean there are plants and animals are only found in Tanzania or are only found in this mountain. Nowhere in the other world you could find this kind of animals or plants. So that is why we need to keep them. But second, they are the carbon reservoir. They restore carbon. Okay. So as big as they are also the carbon reservoir for carbon. They restore that carbon and they reserve it. Okay. So if we cut them, then we release the carbon dioxide from these forests. But the third important thing, which is also important, they provide the watershed. They provide their catchment value. Okay. So they provide water for the country. But the most important one, they are the source of this water which we see either in the Uruguru Mountains, the water we see in Dar es Salaam. It comes from these mountains. But the most important thing, there are also 60% they are used to produce hydropower, electric power. Okay. So we depend, so those are the main three. But the other one, which is indirect, they are also mainly for supporting, reducing soil erosion, controlling or reducing landslides. So they provide also climate which is suitable for agriculture, okay, just because of that kind of conducive environment. Okay. Yes.
Mr. Meshack, you have quite a variety of activities or programs that the conservation group does in Tanzania, but again, human activities, yes, Mr. Meshack, human activities that I earlier mentioned. We hope that the Chsrles Gorge, the project that is on the process, will revolutionize the source of energy in Tanzania. Yes. But in the meantime, we still depend heavily on firewood, yes, as the source of energies in most, yes, households in Tanzania. If you were to weigh, okay, and this is, I'm playing a devil's advocate, but if you were to weigh between letting people starve because they can't chop trees to burn firewood and allowing nature to take its course, Mr. Meshack, please.
Yes, so I would treat that question also in terms of the threat to biodiversity. So it's because of the human interactions. The human interaction has, in a way, provided a threat to this habitat. And this habitat is the forest. These forests are being converted into agricultural lands. They are being converted into settlement. And they are being used unsustainably by cutting trees for charcoal,
Okay.
cutting trees for cooking. Now, we all need these trees to provide that service of livelihood. And I think the question comes, how do we balance, how do we reconcile
Yes.
between having the nature, we provide the service that we need, that we depend on it, but also making sure that the nature stays as it is.
Okay.
And that is our work now, that is what we have been doing. So we understand for sure the population is increasing. And in terms of statistics, Tanzania in 2050, it is estimated by the UN that the population is likely to triple, double or triple.
Okay.
From now
Close to 60 million.
If we are saying to double, we are going to 120. And when the population increases, that means these people would need food to eat. And where that food will come from, it will come from in the expense of converting forest land, which is the forest habitat for biodiversity, into agriculture. So that pressure is quite known. And I think in terms of policymakers, we need to know what would be the consequences as the population increases, but the habitat is not increasing.
It's decreasing.
It's decreasing.
In fact, yes.
So it is a big question. It's not only for TFCG, but we have to understand those consequences.
Okay.
And at the same time, we still also need the water. You asked the hydropower station which is being constructed in Rufiji.
Yes.
So it is a challenge. It depends. It will continue to depend water from these mountains, especially the Kilombero Valley, where 60% of that water that feeds the Rufiji comes from the Kilombero.
Yeah.
And the Kilombero, we know there are other human activities continuing, like pastoralist, agriculture, grazing. We still need all of them. But I think the question, we need to demarcate these areas to make sure that the human activities does not degrade, it does not affect the habitat to the extent that it cannot continue to produce or to provide the ecosystem service. And I think that is the big question, because if we don't do that, the construction which is going on, it will be affected maybe in the next 5-10 years because of the siltation which will be coming from.
Maybe also to understand, and I'm sure my viewers will be interested to know and keen to understand, your organization, the Tanzania Forest Conservation Group, has been in existence for over 30 years.
Yes.
I would not go too far back, or rather, not too far back, but just to understand, do you think, as the executive director, you're moving towards attaining the objectives that were set 30 years ago plus?
Yes. So I believe we're in track. And what makes me believe, first is the awareness of the people, the awareness of the communities, awareness of Tanzanians. They understand the relationship between the biodiversity, the ecosystem services these habitat provide. So that link, people are aware. So if they destroy forests, they know the consequences. So at least we are speaking at that language.
Okay.
Second, what makes me believe, there are actions which have been taken either by government or by communities. And some of the actions which have been taken by government, which gives me confidence that we are heading, try to balance or to protect these resources. One is the Eastern Aka Mountains have been designated, allocated some of the nature reserves. So there are some nature reserves which have been established already, basically increasing the status from forest reserve to nature reserve, which is also a good step. But second, which is also very important, there are also forests remaining on village land. Some villages have taken initiative through our support to make sure that they also demarcate and leave them undisturbed, which is also a good lesson that if we continue as it is, we are likely to make sure that we maintain the ecosystems, we continue to benefit from these ecosystems. So that is what I believe, at least those actions which are going on the ground, they give me confidence that we are likely to live in harmony with nature.
With such an organization like yours, Mr. Chsrles Meshack, contemplating on the significance role that you've, given to yourself, and I'm thinking, what support in terms of technical, at a policy level, do you get, or how do you work with the public sector, specifically the ministry responsible, in ensuring that your objectives are somehow somewhat met? Yes, because now you've spoken so well of population increase and the way that has an impact directly to the environment and to the biodiversity and to the ecosystem.
Yes. Yeah, so we have quite a positive relationship with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism, which is a custodian for protecting these forests, especially also the nature reserve. So TFCG has been a key stakeholder in terms of providing input to have these policies on the ground. So apart from providing input, but also we have been key implementers. And from the implementing of these policies, we have also been providing feedback to the government so that they could revise. And some of them which I could mention is the creation of nature reserve, increasing the status of the forest to a nature reserve. But second, TFCG also has been supporting the government to mobilize resources to compensate people who could leave the area. For example, we are supporting the Tanzania Forest Service to establish, already has established the Magombera Nature Reserve in Udzungwa.
Yes.
So the relationship or the support is very high from the government side, and we are happy to receive that kind of support.
Okay.
So these challenges which I've mentioned, the population is increasing, we know, and some of the other initiatives, they also provide some contribution to make sure that these forests remain. Some of the activities which we see, there are initiatives which are going on, the conservation agriculture, for example, reducing the shifting agriculture, because that is also one of the sources. So there are other organizations, including the government, supporting communities to adapt conservation agriculture. By adapting conservation agriculture, that means people can cultivate the same land for many years without degrading.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Chsrles, the award.
Yes.
The award, I want now to go on to the award before we look onto the threats and then means of mitigating the threats that are onto the conservation. My dear viewers, you're watching the Monday Agenda, and with me on the Monday Agenda today is Mr. Chsrles Meshack, who is the Executive Director of the Tanzania Forest Conservation Group. And recently, Mr. Chsrles Meshack was awarded French Republic's Human Rights Prize for 2020, and this is in relation to the work that Mr. Meshack does in preserving the environment. I strongly want to believe that. Mr. Meshack, do you want to tell us more about the award?
Yes. Yeah, so about the award, in 2020, what happened, the French Republic provides a theme every year. And the theme for 2020 were in two areas. One was on health, and the second was on biodiversity. So they wanted to recognize individuals and organizations which are taking initiative to promote or protect biodiversity. So it was a global competition. And so I saw the application, then I had to apply.
Okay.
And I went to their website, and then I developed I applied, and one of the condition was, how can we support your initiative? And for me, I presented my experience of my organization, what you have been doing, especially working with the communities. And the most important thing, what can I do extra to make sure that these communities continue to protect these forests of high biodiversity? So I presented that application, Yeah, and without expecting, in October, I was informed I'm one of the winners for this award. So I was told there were many applications, and they only wanted the 5 around the global, and I was the only one from Africa.
Wow.
And they were supposed to receive that reward in French, so that we could be awarded by the Prime Minister of France.
Okay.
But due to COVID, we couldn't travel. So
Yes.
instead, the ambassador of France here gave me the reward
On behalf of the
yes,
Prime Minister.
and that was on the 10th December 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On behalf of the entire Tanzania
Yes.
and my viewers, of course, many congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So the criteria, if I picked up well, you said how they can support your initiative.
Yeah.
But what exactly was so unique that, across Africa, many organizations, as you rightly said, I'm sure there are thousands of applications, but then went up to 5 and then a winner from Tanzania. And I really am very proud as a Tanzanian myself to have a Tanzanian receive such a global award. But what was specifically unique about your presentation that you think, in your opinion, awarded you this prize?
So first, I think one was my application focused on the coastal forests, people living in the coastal areas. And I mainly focused in Lindi, where communities have taken initiative to demarcate forest on your village land to be village land forest reserve. Now, in this village land forest reserve, they have 2 key unique areas. One, which is very important, I think, there are also other nature reserves around. Now, these village land forest reserve, they act like a corridor. So they connect from one nature reserve to another. So the species, they are able to move from one area to another. So that was unique.
Okay.
But second is the biodiversity itself, which is found in the village natural reserve, in the village land forest reserves.
Okay.
So you find, despite that they are using it as corridor, but also you would find some endemic species or some rare animals which are found in these forests. And the initiative which they have taken these communities since 2008 is quite unique for the communities. So that is what I thought was unique in this application. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
So does Tanzania Forest Conservation Group also include the interest of Zanzibar as part of Tanzania, or you only are based on the mainland?
Well, we are only based on the mainland,
Okay.
but we collaborate with institutions in Zanzibar.
Okay.
So we collaborate with the colleagues in Zanzibar, especially the government of Zanzibar.
Okay.
But also the other NGOs which are working in Zanzibar.
Excellent. Because my question is, for instance, we have the Jozani forest in Zanzibar, where we have the red monkeys, only in the entire world found in Tanzania, in Zanzibar. And in fact, to sustain the Jozani forest, they do a lot of tourism activities, so they make money.
Yeah.
And then they are able now to sustain, to ensure that everything is well preserved. And I'm thinking onto the 2 major areas of focus on the mainland. Because you've mentioned of endangered species, which I'm sure most of us, even my viewers, would probably have been interested to visit to see. Do you have such programs here on the mainland as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So in the mainland, we are, especially the Magombera Nature Reserve, which has been declared.
Magombera is in?
Is in close to Dzungwa National Park.
Dzungwa, okay.
Yes, so it is in Morogoro region. In Kilombero district.
Okay.
So you have Magombera, which is annexed to Dzungwa.
Okay.
That is why you would also find the red colobus monkeys.
Okay.
Yes, you would find the red colobus monkeys.
We have them in Morogoro as well.
Yes, we have them, the red colobus monkeys.
All right.
In addition to black and white colobus monkeys, which are common, they are there. But for Magombera, we also have a Sanje mangabe. It's also unique. It looks like colobus, but it's very unique monkey which is found also in Magombera Nature Reserve.
Wow.
So Tanzania is rich in terms of really biodiversity.
Do we have tourists going
Yes.
to those areas?
Yes.
Excellent.
So we have tourists. So the tourists who go to Magombera, we promote ecotourism. We call it ecotourism.
Yes.
So the kind of tourists are different from the one who visit like Serengeti.
Yeah.
Because the one who visit Serengeti, they love to see big animals like elephants or lions. But for these ones, you have to put on binoculars.
Okay.
At least you could see these, the red crobus monkeys in the trees.
Okay.
And also, if you are fit, walking through the hills. So it's quite special tourists who would really be interested to visit in these areas. So we normally connect those who visit in Udzungwa because Udzungwa is a mountain.
Yeah.
It's very clear that they are also interested to visit in Magombera.
Okay.
Yes.
I will certainly make a plan.
Great. So you are most welcome to visit also in these areas.
I am so much. I have for a long time been promoting tourism in Tanzania, but I've also been doing a lot of keen onto agriculture, onto the forest, etc. And honored to actually have crossed this path with you. Mr. Meshack, maybe towards the end of the program, I would really wish to look onto, although you've mentioned a few, but what are some of the threats onto our biodiversity in Tanzania? You've mentioned population increase and the fact that, we access the forest, we access the nature to, sustain our livelihoods, either for food or firewoods, etc. But what are some of other threats that may be a bigger threat to even your organization?
So the big threat, which is the conversion of these forests into agriculture and the settlement, that is the biggest. And it is more related to the population increase.
Okay.
And it is also related to, as the city grows or the municipal grows, they expand these areas. That is the major threat. But the other one is related to mining.
Okay.
So you find these small miners who can go. Sometimes they have been also invading these areas. That is quite also a major threat because they normally look for alluvial gold, which is found on water streams.
Okay.
And in the process of doing that, they destroy these river streams. They also destroy they convert the streams to other areas.
Okay.
And the other thing which is a major threat is these river banks. People cultivate up to the river banks.
Yes.
So in that process, they destroy water, or the water is being destroyed. But at the same time, because you are increasing water sanitation, then the water availability to lower streams becomes also a challenge. So I would say, I think the major one is the conversion of these habitats into human activities like agriculture and the settlement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does your organization promote the mitigation or coming to durable solutions to these challenges? Because you can't stop population growth. Yes.
No, definitely we can't stop. First is that kind of awareness I've mentioned, the link that we depend on these resources to survive. So one thing which we do, which is quite innovative, we have been doing, is to have enterprise related to resource itself. One of it is butterfly farming. We did butterfly farming in Amani.
Yes, I visited that one.
Amani butterfly, yes. So we came with that innovative that they could raise this butterfly and then we could sell the pupa to Europe. Unfortunately, in 2016, there was a law which stopped the export of this butterfly. That was a big challenge, but it was really an innovative project which I wish it could have continued.
Okay.
The other thing which related to that is beekeeping. They could use the resources to keep beekeeping, and in the process of that, you are protecting the habitat, but at the same time you are you're also getting livelihood from the honey. The other thing which we do is to make sure that we protect any forest patch remaining.
Okay.
So the communities should make sure that any forests along the riverbanks, along the water sources, they make sure that they protect them for ecosystem services, especially related to water, so that they can get water. The other thing which I mentioned, I think the children also, school children, have to make sure that they understand, because they are the one who will be affected most.
Yeah.
If they don't understand the consequences of human activities.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a friend, Mr. Wellington Chibebe, who is the country director for ILO in Tanzania and neighboring countries. He once told me, this world we've inherited, we've borrowed it from the future.
Yes.
So we have the responsibility to make sure that when we return it, it's in a better shape than the way we found it.
Yeah.
You've spoken, and I really wish to again bring it back, the aspect of engaging children. And probably not go on to the methodology because they're taught in school. But do you have any other interventions specifically targeting adults, the young people who are now, the food mongers looking for areas for cultivation, because everyone is getting into agriculture?
We don't have that specific, but the initiative that we promote, it is an opportunity for all of them. And some of the initiative which we promote outside now, the protected area, is tree planting. So especially in Mufindi, we have promoted the people to have trees on their land. And those trees, they could really plant on their land, and then they could get income.
Okay.
And that includes also the adults, and also the young people can do that.
Okay.
But the other thing which we promote through the adult, as I mentioned, is the community-based forest management, where the communities can leave forests on their village land. And the other thing is to protect these riverbanks, because the riverbanks are key. There is a law which they have to live about 30 meters from, but that is not normally complied by many farmers, and that is a big challenge. But they all know the consequences of the negative impact of human activities. So some of the activities which we see, they are maybe not related, is to educate these young, and at the end of the day, maybe they don't stay in the villages. They have to move maybe to urban areas, so that they could seek for other initiative. Because if I look east to Sambara,
yes,
the land is, the population is very, very high.
Yeah.
And the land for farming is really decreasing. Okay. And so I think through the government having these schools, secondary schools around the different wards, I think helps the young generation to acquire education, and they use that education to look for other opportunities in other areas, so that they can shift from the village. That is also an indirect way of promoting the youth in conservation.
Okay. One of the lessons, Mr. Meshack, we can learn from your organization, I'm sure it's one of the very few organizations of such longer time still in existence, and still, doing wonderful things to deserve such an award, is the sustainability, the continuity of the organization of the program. Maybe just to learn from you, Mr. Meshack, most organizations collapse when the founders, the institutional memory is lost. How are you preparing the coming generation towards ensuring that these good footsteps that you have followed are still followed, and they will continue to be followed until, we make sure that Tanzania is, this award, it's to Tanzania, that we all feel very proud because of the activities, the work that we do to our environment.
Yeah, so the organization is managed based on the laws of the country.
Okay.
So you have the NGO Act, which the NGO has to be registered. And in terms of the structure, we have the board. So there is a board which oversees everything. So I could say, for example, the founder is no longer there. So I have to say Dr. Alan Rogers was the founder of this organization. And he passed away, I think, in 2008 or 9. So he's no longer, but the organization is still there. Mm-hmm. So we also have other founders who have passed away, but still the organization recruits other board members to make sure that they advance the mission of the organization.
Excellent.
Now, in terms of the secretariat, we also recruit these fresh students from those who have graduated from Sokoine, from University of Dar es Salaam. Okay. Different expertise. So we have them; they are part of the team. Okay. Some of them volunteer; they come to volunteer work. So at least they know. So, but why TFCG will continue to be there? Because it is trying to address the issues related to global and also national level. The issue of the impact of forest loss, and the forest loss is contributing to climate change. And one of the solutions is to protect these resources. Okay. That agenda will continue. It will continue to be there, whether it will come in a different approach, but that agenda will remain forever. And because it will remain forever, there are international organizations, national organizations, which are willing to provide resources. For example, the Prime Minister for French recently has been mobilizing resources globally to make sure that from 2021 to 2030, the main agenda is to mobilize resources to protect or to fight climate change. Okay. So it is an agenda which has been put forward from 2021 to 2030. Okay. Resources will be mobilized to make sure that biodiversity is in the top of the list, and also climate change is the one which they have to fight. So that kind of initiative from the international organization and also from the country would make sure that TFCG would still be part or would play a role in trying to address the challenges related to forest loss or biodiversity loss.
You have indeed and in fact mentioned support, but this support is not coming from within our borders. What support do you receive from the government to ensure that your work is at ease? It's not easy, but is at ease.
Yes, so the main support we receive from the government is the conducive environment for working, especially the policy which is there is conducive for NGOs to work. And the second, the other support which we get, because we are the players in terms of designing the policy, in terms of supporting the policy. So we are the players. So in that way, we support the government to implement the policy, but at the same time, the NGOs has a space to play in that mission. So we don't receive direct resources, but we receive a lot of support, especially when we want to access funds from these donors. We normally get a supporting letter from the government. So the government is behind to make sure that the NGOs access resources from outside.
Mr. Meshack, we are towards the very end of our program, and I'm sure you must have a word or two to the Tanzanians. Please talk to the Tanzanians who are watching the Monday Agenda this evening so that your message is driven home from the horse's mouth.
Thank you. So for the Tanzanians, my colleagues, we need to understand biodiversity is very important to our country, and make sure that we could play a role wherever you are, especially by understanding the impact of the human activities to the biodiversity. Understand that we depend on biodiversity in order to live, especially these forests provide storage for carbon. They absorb carbon dioxide and they release oxygen, which is very crucial to our life. Second, these forests provide ecosystem services like water. They are the one keeping water on the ground. and the water is released slowly through the rivers, through the streams. And that is where companies like Dawasa can draw this water from. Dar es Salaam people depend on water from Uluguru Mountains. The power we have, electricity power, comes from this source of forests in the Eastern Aka Mountains and the coastal forests. So we need to protect them at any cost, without which our life will be in danger. Thank you.
Wow, that's a very powerful message. And for me is really to thank you, Mr. Chsrles Meshack. First, to congratulate you.
Thank you.
For such a powerful global recognition. And it's truly an honor for us, Capital TV and the Monday Agenda, to actually host you and get to know more details about your work, but about the award as well. And basically to reiterate what you've said, that we really need to preserve our environment by hooks and crooks, and let's make sure that, you know, the younger generation from the time go, they understand to as much as not littering in the streets, you know, all this contribute, chopping trees, just taking care of our environment, and certainly our environment will take care of us. Yes. There's COVID, there are a lot of eruptions of diseases, but if you look, it's a consequence of our activities or our reactions to the nature.
Yes.
So let's take care of the nature, and certainly the nature will take care of us. Mr. Chsrles Meshack, thank you so much for coming to the Monday Agenda, and once again, congratulations. And my dear hosts, thank you for watching the Monday Agenda. Until next time, I'm your host, Austin Makani.